Let's join Heather and our registered behavior technician, Candace McCoy, as they talk about this week's high leverage practice.
Welcome to Little Bits of TLC, the podcast where we explore the dynamic world of education. Join our host, Heather Volchko, as this season we focus on high leverage practices, HLPs. Each episode will examine a different HLP, essential strategies designed to enhance teaching and improve outcomes across various educational settings. These practices focus on collaboration, assessment, social, emotional, behavioral support, and instruction, benefiting all K-12 students. I hope you're ready to be both challenged and inspired, because this season is all about mastering the HLPs. This is Little Bits of TLC. Looking for something that actually fits your life? TLC University is here for that. Each week, we spotlight something different. A webinar with real-world insights, a hangout-style interview, and a hands-on workshop or a Q&A where we answer your questions. It's flexible, it's self-paced, and most come with CEUs. So whether you're looking to grow, reflect, or just listen in, there's something here for you. And it's all in one place. university.thresholdlearning.org. That's where you'll find show notes, professional blogs, a full catalog of ACE-accredited courses, and downloadable resources. It all just keeps growing. So whether you're walking the dog, commuting, or taking a breather between the daily grind, TLC University meets you where you are. Head to university.thresholdlearning.org and check out what's new this week. See you then.
Establish a consistent, organized, and respectful learning environment. To build and foster positive relationships, teachers should establish age-appropriate and culturally responsive expectations, routines, and procedures within their classrooms that are positively stated and explicitly taught and practiced across the school year. When students demonstrate mastery and follow established rules and routines, teachers should provide age-appropriate specific performance feedback in meaningful and caring ways. By establishing, following, and reinforcing expectations of all students within the classroom, teachers will reduce the potential for challenging behavior and increase student engagement. When establishing learning environments, teachers should build mutually respectful relationships with students and engage them in setting the classroom climate, like rules and routines. Be respectful and value ethnic, cultural, contextual, and linguistic diversity to foster student engagement across learning environments.
This week, we're talking about high leverage practice 7, establish a consistent, organized, and respectful learning environment. So I know, Candace, in the consult work that you do, you're constantly working with either teachers or paraprofessionals to create that learning environment for their students. So for you, in your practice, what does this look like?
It looks a lot of different ways in the classroom. The first thing is, I think, recognizing that the impact that the classroom climate has on behavior and engagement and academic success, it matters so much. Consistent, organized, and respectful environments will allow your students to flourish in a way that a chaotic environment wouldn't. So I think it's really important in the beginning to set age-appropriate expectations. Make sure that those are very clear, that they're predictable, and that they're positively stated. I think that's the biggest one for me, is that they're stated positively. I feel like it is more respectful to say, please walk in the hallway, than to say, don't run.
Well, and I think aside from respect too, like it tells them exactly what to do, right? So you're not saying just stop doing what you are doing. You're telling them, and now you can do these things, right? And if we're just in it together and it's like, hey, can you walk instead of run, please? That's respect. It's also, going to be maintaining that consistency. If every time you're noticing it, you're just giving that respectful follow through, right? Like you're just kind of fitting it all together. And it's just, like you said, like it just is a predictable opportunity for students to then just rise to the occasion.
And for me, even when somebody tells me exactly what to do instead of what not to do, it reduces my anxiety. I know what's expected of me, and it calms me. Even if I don't like what they're telling me to do and I don't want to do it, it still is better than just telling me what not to do.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a ton of sense.
It's also important to model and practice and reinforce those expectations. Role playing and things like that can help them to understand the expectations. And the most important thing, and something that I see so often in classrooms, is that those things have to be reinforced regularly, not just the first week of school. I think oftentimes we fall into the trap of they should know better. And the reality is they don't. They forget. That's not their priority. Their priority is not walking in the hallway. Their priority is getting to lunch first so that they're first in line. So they need to continuously be reminded and modeled and reinforced. And we need to be open to adjusting our expectations as the school year proceeds and they grow and they learn. And maybe something that seemed like a reasonable expectation at the beginning of the school year wouldn't seem like a reasonable expectation at the end of the school year. So to be certain that you're growing and evolving in that,
I appreciate that you're bringing this up because you work primarily with our secondary students, so middle school and high school. And what you're talking about is somewhat of a common elementary conversation where we're saying, like, we need to actually teach them those expectations. Don't just assume that they already know these things. Remind them and go over it multiple times. Don't assume because they have it one day, they're going to have it, 5 months later. I guess I'm really curious to learn from you, like, how did you come to that place in the secondary world? Because it seems like it's somewhat of an elementary perspective that we run into in our schools.
I see it so often where, students are doing things that, yes, the logical part of your brain might think they should know better. They're 14, 15 years old, but they're still doing those things. And by expecting them to know better isn't actually making them know better. So there's got to be a proactive approach to achieving the goal that you're both after, which, is an education. So it's so simple and it's so basic, but it's so skipped at the secondary level. And I'm constantly reminding teachers and paras to go over those expectations regularly, make sure that everything is clearly posted where they can see it, they can look at it even when you're not talking about it, but set aside a time in every day to go over those things, or a couple of times a week where you're going over your expectations and making sure that they understand them. Give them the opportunity to ask questions. They might not understand why it's an expectation. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Why can't I run to the wide open hallway? Why can't I run down it? Let them ask the questions and then give them honest and respectful answers. It's not a stupid question. When I see a wide open hallway, I kind of want to run too. But there's, safety concerns or whatever. And when you explain to them the reason behind it, they're more likely to then follow that and do what it is you're trying to do. But to expect that even at 18 years old, they just know that, they just don't. It's not a priority to them. They know what's a priority. If you ask them about a video game, they can probably tell you everything about it. But if you ask them the classroom rules, they may know one or two, maybe, if you're not going over them regularly. It's not a priority.
Well, and I don't know, the way you're talking about this is you're like, just have an honest conversation, just answer the questions, like, I think sometimes we forget that just simply being okay with taking whatever conversation it is that shows up is actually respectful. And I
Mm-hmm.
find, especially in secondary, we can get into these kind of either intentional or unintentional power struggles where it's like, you should know better. You should know. Like, why are you asking? You're challenging authority. And it can kind of spiral into these really ugly places. When, if as adults, we can just have okay, cool, ask me why you're wondering that. Or like, why did you see that way? Can you catch me up on what's making sense to you right now? We're just engaging in like, okay, help me get into your world because then I can figure out how to get you where I need you to go. But it's such a more respectful interaction style that then you don't even have to think about really because it's a perspective shift. And then your interactions just automatically show up differently, which would kind of check, in this high leverage practice, that respectful piece.
And I think the impact that having those honest conversations can have on engagement when it comes to academics is huge. They don't care what you know until they know that you care. So the more you're willing to engage in conversation with them and allow them to express themselves and ask their questions and feel like they're in a safe place, the more they're going to engage with the academics you're presenting to them.
Oh, for sure. And I know you have modeled that for a variety of staff that we've worked with, where I think at first you've gotten some maybe pushback or, yeah, just staff being very uncomfortable with like, wait, what? You would let that student say that? Or, like you're okay with that? And then you've been able to walk them through it and be like, this is an interaction. This is a moment. It's not how we are going to interact forever and ever. Amen. Can you walk through just like, what is going through your mind as you're quote unquote allowing these students to interact with you in a certain kind of way because you have this other picture that you're like simultaneously holding while you're having those interactions? Can you walk through that?
I kind of look at it as when a student's asking me about something, they might be a little bit aggressive. They might use language I'm uncomfortable with. They might say things in a way that I wouldn't. But that's because I'm coming into the conversation with a preconceived idea of how they should present me the question. They don't have that information. That only exists in my mind. They're presenting the question to me in a way that feels right to them. Maybe they're agitated at the time. Maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe it's a language barrier. There could be lots of factors that they're not intentionally disrespecting me. I mean, sometimes they are.
Right.
But in most cases, especially in situations like this, they're not. It's just that's the way they present the question. And I just need to receive it the way they're saying it. And I may rephrase it back to them in a way that would be more respectful in an effort to model how I would prefer that conversation go in the future. But I'm also not going to reprimand them or refuse to answer their question because they didn't present it in a way that my mind thought they should.
Oh, for sure. I mean, how many times do we work with students that present a statement and sort of imply it as more of a question? And then we're
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, do you mean?" And then, like, reframe it in some of that, like, respectful, "This is how you would ask a question," to kinda get that need met, type of way. And especially when you've got, like, good working rapport with students, you kinda do that smirk of like, "Did you mean this?" And they're like, "Yeah, miss." Like, you get that other side where you're like, "Okay, yeah, I see what you're doing. Yeah, that. Can we do that?" I'm like, "Okay, cool."
I also think it's super important to make sure that you're using meaningful feedback
Mm.
rather than generic praise. We say good job, great job all day long, but to be specific, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. Something like that. Even if it's not phrased, I'm not saying you asked me that question in an appropriate way. I appreciate that. I'm saying that's a good question. Thank you for asking. I'm not reinforcing the part of it that I'm hoping to correct, but I am praising them for their ability to ask that question. Sometimes that's just a huge step. How they ask it, I don't care. I just want you to ask it. So I think celebrating those small wins and being really specific with your feedback. In a situation like that, I don't want to say great job. I want to specifically point out what you did well. And while I might rephrase that in a way that would be more appropriate, you still ask the question, which is huge for a lot of our students.
Yeah, I think that's leading to consistency, because
Mm-hmm.
if we are consistently noticing and then putting some words around what we're noticing, that on our end makes us predictable because we are continually showing them like, yes to this. And I didn't say this, so we're going to somewhat imply that like we're going to work on that. But having that consistent style of interaction, it builds so much safety around that dynamic, the interaction style, like what can students expect from us. I mean, I'm even thinking of moments where like, I was not okay, and students knew that, there was enough, like, safety within that relationship to be like, "You're not okay, are you?" Like, and to engage in those conversations, that was not disrespectful, and it gave me an opportunity to be like, "Yeah, you're right. Like, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit off today." But even, like, in the inconsistent, like, I didn't have to show up like a robot. I didn't have to be completely on my A game or perfect in every single interaction, but knowing that, like, there was that, freedom and kind of that relational reciprocity, like, there's this give and take on both sides, and that's okay, expected, and, like, really healthy, that consistency allowed us to walk through so many different things that could potentially be perceived as, like, inconsistent on a day-to-day basis. But if we're giving them that feedback in those ways, then that's building that consistency, which is then like we've got the consistent now of respectful interactions, and like all of this all just like comes together. I think sometimes this high leverage practice, people can get really in the weeds of, all these little like micro moves or these checkbox approach to like, what does it mean to be organized? What does it mean to be, consistent? Do I have to be a robot? Like respectful? Do they haven't earned it? You're like, there's all these different kind of caveats here. I'm wondering if from all of the different consult work that you have done everywhere, have you ever had a situation where someone thinks that they're either like that they are organized or that they are respectful and you're looking at it and being like, that's not exactly what we're going for, or like, I don't think that, maybe you're doing what you think you're doing in terms of this high leverage practice?
Yes. Almost all the time. I
Mm.
think that teachers they come from a place of genuine care and They don't do, nobody walks in their classroom being like, I'm not going to be organized or respectful. They believe that they are. Sometimes it's just tweaking the approach a little bit. I've had classrooms where, a board full of don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And it's just trying to say like, hey, let's reword this and spin it in a positive way. Or, yeah, you've got all the pieces in place, but now let's sit down and get to know the students. What are their interests? Like, what are their cultural backgrounds? What are the things that will make them feel included and safe in your space? You're working towards it, but you're just stopping a little bit short. Maybe it's just a fear of getting too personal or something like that. And there's a balance that has to be struck for sure. But validating their identities and the experiences that they've lived and understanding that it's not a one size fits all approach. Every student is going to receive respect in a different way. And you won't know what that way is until you really get to know them and you find out kind of what makes them tick and what their experiences have been. So it's the same in teaching approaches. It's not one size fits all. Not every kid learns the same. And thankfully, we figured that out a few years back. And now everyone has the opportunity, to be taught a little bit differently with different tools. But it's the same when it comes to the rest of the aspects in the classroom. Everybody's going to receive it differently. I know that I do. Like, I might hear something that I feel is disrespectful to me when it was never intended to be that way. And it's not disrespectful to somebody else. It's just my sensitivity that makes me feel that way.
Thank you for bringing that up, though, because I think, especially with the respectful piece of this high leverage practice, there's so much nuance to that, right? Like, whatever is true for me in that may not be true for you in that, and that comes from a whole bunch of different, background pieces that are well outside of any control of, especially anyone in schools or, like it's just something that we need to see and understand and kind of work with and around, as we're kind of trying to walk toward a, kind of mutual understanding of it. So thank you for kind of bringing up that may just not be the same, and that isn't necessarily wrong.
And I think it's built on intentionality. Like, we have to be really intentional about it in our classroom. We have 180 days with these students. We need to be organized and intentional about creating those relationships that make them feel safe and encourage the engagement that we're looking for in the academics. And I think just being very intentional about it, doing what you can to pay attention, get to know, take data. Don't be afraid to take data. Data will help you figure out if you're on the right path. Like, if you feel like what you're doing is creating an organized, consistent, and respectful environment, and yet you're not getting the results you're looking for, take some data and plot that and find out if maybe it's just not working.
Yeah, I know you've got so many tools in your toolbox in this high leverage practice because you have walked so many different people through so many different variations of this. So, thank you so much for taking the time to share your expertise in this area.
Thank you.
Working in a self-contained, alternative education, therapeutic, or correctional classroom? Project Onward is a 6-strand cohort-based project designed to help you build a strong, structured program for complex students who need extra specialized support. You'll get practical tools to set up clear routines, strengthen engagement, manage behavior, and plan instruction that actually fits the splintered needs of your students. By the end, you'll walk away with a complete, ready-to-use program that has been adapted to your local needs. Led by Heather Bolchko, Lathrell Eisler, Jonathan Barbario, and Manny Wasias, Project Onward blends proven strategies with vetted experience, helping you move forward with confidence. If you're creating something from the ground up or looking to update what you've got, this project gives you the structure and clarity to do it well. If you support students with low incident needs, Project Base helps you design a consistent classroom built just for them. And if you're working in general ed or resource settings with behavioral challenges, Project Thrive gives you the tools to work with, not against, the flow of your classroom. Visit university.thresholdlearning.org to meet the team and get started today. Let's move onward, together.
To build and foster positive relationships, teachers should establish age appropriate and culturally responsive expectations, routines, and procedures within their classrooms that are positively stated and explicitly taught and practiced across the school year. When students demonstrate mastery and follow established rules and routines, teachers should provide age appropriate, specific performance feedback in meaningful and caring ways. By establishing, following, and reinforcing expectations for all students within the classroom, teachers will reduce the potential for challenging behavior and increase student engagement. When establishing learning environments, teachers should build mutually respectful relationships with students and engage them in setting the classroom climate, such as through rules and routines, be respectful, and value ethnic, cultural, contextual, and linguistic diversity to foster student engagement across learning environments. Effective special education teachers are masters at creating learning environments that are consistent, organized, and deeply respectful, all of which are crucial for supporting student success. Their approach is rooted in practices that prioritize the social and emotional well being of their students. A key part of their strategy is focusing on increasing appropriate behavior through an instructional approach that explicitly teaches social skills. This method allows students to practice these skills throughout the day, with teachers providing positive, specific feedback to reinforce appropriate behaviors. These teachers also proactively address potential challenges by implementing evidence based practice to prevent social, emotional, and behavioral issues before they escalate, offering early intervention as soon as any risks appear. As student challenges become more complex, these educators respond with a team based problem solving strategy that intensifies support in line with the needs identified through behavioral assessments. Even when addressing significant behavioral issues, these supports are delivered in a manner that is caring, respectful, and culturally relevant. What stands out in their approach is the recognition that both academic and behavioral strategies are far more effective when they are built on a foundation of positive and caring teacher student relationships. Teachers understand that while they can't force students to learn or behave, they can certainly create an environment that makes it much more likely for both to happen. Central to any effective classroom is a set of clear, consistent rules, routines, and procedures that keep students engaged and focused throughout the day. These procedures are implemented in a proactive and positive way, with the teacher serving as a model of respect and care in all interactions. Rules are communicated in positive terms, focusing on what students should do rather than what they shouldn't, and are kept simple, usually 5 or fewer. Behavioral expectations are taught through clear examples and non examples and are practiced regularly until students achieve mastery. Routines are meticulously planned from how students enter and exit the classroom to how they respond to the teacher's attention signal and seek assistance. Each procedure is broken down into critical steps, which are explicitly taught and practiced with the students. The literature suggests a recommended ratio where for every corrective statement, teachers should make at least 4 acknowledgments of appropriate behavior, emphasizing mastery rather than focusing on mistakes. Teachers also ensure that students have ample opportunities to respond to both social and academic prompts throughout the day. These prompts are tailored to the expectations at hand, whether it's a social norm like voice levels during transitions or an academic task. The frequency of these opportunities to respond varies depending on the age and severity of the student's disability, but is a primary instructional strategy for building both fluency and proficiency. In every lesson, the goal is to achieve a balance of direct instruction, ample practice opportunities, and high rates of feedback, all of which are designed to ensure that students are successful, typically aiming for at least 80% proficiency. This approach maximizes engagement and minimizes off task behavior. As students progress, their learning is carefully monitored, and teachers adjust their instruction, practice, and feedback to meet the evolving needs of their students. When teachers and school staff create a consistent, organized, and respectful learning environment, they set the stage for students to thrive, both academically and behaviorally. In a chaotic classroom, students can't learn, and teachers can't perform at their best when constantly managing off task behaviors. However, when teachers invest time in explicitly teaching classroom rules and expectations, approach behavioral issues as learning opportunities, and treat students with respect, they are well equipped to build positive relationships and support student success. This practice is closely connected with other high leverage practices, such as High Leverage Practice 16, which emphasizes the use of explicit instruction, and High Leverage Practice 8 and 22, which focuses on providing positive and constructive feedback to guide students' learning and behavior. Additionally, effective special educators collaborate with colleagues as outlined in High Leverage Practice 1 and 2, and use a range of data sources, as described in High Leverage Practice 4 and 6, to evaluate the effectiveness of their classroom environment and make necessary adjustments to ensure student success. Teachers who effectively establish a consistent, organized, and respectful learning environment begin by ensuring that expectations, rules, and procedures are clear, observable, and positively stated. This isn't just about laying down the law. These guidelines are articulated in ways that students can easily understand and apply, no matter where they are in the school. It's also essential that these expectations and rules resonate with the diverse cultures, values, and beliefs of the students and families represented in the school. Effective teachers don't just impose rules, they thoughtfully incorporate the rich cultural backgrounds of their students, making the learning environment inclusive and respectful of everyone's identity. These teachers know that simply stating rules isn't enough. They establish and explicitly teach 3 to 5 core expectations, like being respectful, responsible, and safe. And it doesn't stop there. They bring students and other stakeholders into the process, making sure that these expectations are meaningful to everyone involved. To support these expectations, specific behaviors or classroom rules are clearly defined and taught. Teachers also create and teach consistent procedures for daily tasks, such as how to line up or how to seek help, giving students a structured way to navigate their day. Throughout the year, these expectations and rules aren't just set in stone and forgotten. Effective teachers regularly revisit and reteach them as needed, always using consistent language to reinforce what's been established. They help students understand why these rules matter, grounding their behavior in a rationale that makes sense. An essential part of this process is recognizing that all behavior is a form of communication. Effective teachers interpret student behavior through this lens, which allows them to respond in ways that address the underlying needs, rather than just the surface level actions. To encourage students to follow these expectations, teachers minimize unstructured time and ensure that the rules are visible throughout the school. They also thoughtfully arrange the physical space to maximize flow and accessibility, and they use strategies like pre-correction to anticipate and prevent issues before they arise. Frequent, consistent, and positive feedback is key, reinforcing the behaviors that align with classroom expectations and maintaining a positive, supportive environment for all students. School leaders play a crucial role in supporting teachers by ensuring they are proficient in key classroom management practices and applying them consistently across various settings. This involves providing feedback on how effectively these practices are implemented with different students, helping educators fine-tune their approach. Leaders should also foster a school environment where proactive and positive classroom management is the standard, creating a supportive and productive atmosphere. Additionally, it's important for leaders to collaborate with their staff to develop a cohesive set of response strategies for acknowledging appropriate behaviors and addressing challenges. By ensuring consistency in these strategies across all classrooms, leaders help reinforce expectations and maintain a positive learning environment for all students. Establishing a clear, consistent, and positive learning environment is more than just a best practice. It's the bedrock upon which all other high-leverage practices are built. Think of it as the stage on which the drama of teaching and learning unfolds. When this foundation is solid, students are more likely to succeed both academically and socially. It opens the door for educators to engage in effective instructional practices and nurtures a climate of care and respect between teachers and students. Research over the past 50 years continuously underscores the significant impact that robust classroom management and effective instruction have on students' academic achievements and social behaviors. Essentially, when the environment is right, everything else falls into place, making teaching and learning a more impactful and positive experience. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Join us next week when Heather sits down with our registered behavior technician, Manny Cuesias, to talk about our next high-leverage practice.
Hey, before you jump back into your busy life, consider dropping a like and follow at Threshold Learning TLC on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you like our show, share the podcast with your colleagues. A personal recommendation is by far the best way to promote the podcast. Let them know that they can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that they catch their podcast. Just be sure to leave a rating and review on your favorite platform. You can email us at info@thresholdlearning.org. We always enjoy connecting with fellow educators and champions for educational justice. You can find everything you're looking for at thresholdlearning.org. See you there. Attention educators pursuing behavior analysis certification and universities preparing them for success. Supervision with TLC offers 100% remote fieldwork supervision designed specifically for school-based professionals. Educators can earn their hours right in their schools without leaving their classroom, all while being supported by experienced BCBAs who understand the realities of education. With month-to-month scheduling, affordable rates, and both live video and asynchronous chat, our fieldwork supervision model is designed to fit into your life, not the other way around. We also invite universities to enhance their graduate programs in partnership with our team of practicing school-based BCBAs. Our fieldwork supervision model keeps students on track for certification by helping them connect their practice to all exam domains so that they can confidently pass the exam. Explore more at university.thresholdlearning.org/supervision or email supervision@thresholdlearning.org to connect. Supervision with TLC, where educators grow into behavior analysts.